Kyiv, Reuters, Russian forces pounded the city of Bakhmut, the months-old focal point of their attempts to capture the eastern Ukrainian industrial region of Donbas, and the head of Russia's Wagner mercenary force said Ukrainian troops were pouring in ahead of an inevitable counter-offensive. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces, in a report on Facebook, said fighting gripped Bakhmut and nearby areas. It said Russian forces had failed to advance on 2 villages to the northwest. At least a dozen localities came under Russian fire. Separately, Serhiy Cherevatiy, spokesman for Ukraine's eastern group of forces, told national television on Wednesday that in the past 24 hours, Russian forces had attacked 324 times using artillery and multiple rocket launchers. The Russians are destroying buildings in Bakhmut to prevent our soldiers from using them as fortifications, Cherevatiy said. Cherevatiy on Tuesday said there had been a record number of attacks on a section of the front further north, near the city of Kupiansk, in northeastern Ukraine. The governor of the southern Ukrainian region of Mykolaiv said Russian missiles had hit an apartment building and a private house in the city of the same name. 1 person was killed and 15 were injured, Vitaly Kim wrote on the Telegram messaging app. Top prize. But Bakhmut remains the prize sought for now by Russian troops. They have tried for some 9 months to push their way into the largely destroyed city in a conflict now extending into its 15th month and have secured some central districts. Ukraine's military has vowed to defend what was once a city of 70,000, though President Volodymyr Zelensky suggested this month they might pull out if in danger of encirclement. Russia's Wagner mercenary group has spearheaded much of the advance into Bakhmut, and its founder, Yevgeny Prigozhin, an ally of President Vladimir Putin, said this month that its forces controlled 80% of the city. On Wednesday, Prigozhin said in a video message, "Today, well-trained enemy units are already being thrown into Bakhmut. A counter-offensive by the Ukrainians is inevitable." A critic of Russian Defense Minister Serhiy Shoigu, Prigozhin said his forces will advance at any cost, just to grind down the Ukrainian army and disrupt their offensive. Ukraine's military has made no comment on a new counter-offensive to build on advances undertaken last year to recapture Russian-occupied areas in the northeast and the south. In Washington, the top U.S. general in Europe said Ukraine's military would get the weaponry it needed in time. General Christopher Cavoli, the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, cited as an example that more than 98% of the combat vehicles promised to Kyiv had already been delivered. Military analyst Denis Popovich told Ukrainian NV Radio that there was no immediate prospect of turning things around in Bakhmut. If Bakhmut falls, Russia will have resources to send elsewhere, Popovich said. Bakhmut offers an opportunity to destroy Russian troops and prevent them from being engaged elsewhere. Armed forces of Ukraine repel 43 Russian attacks in 3 directions. This is stated in the report by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine as of 1800, April 26, posted on Facebook. The enemy focuses its main efforts on conducting offensive operations in Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Marinka directions. 43 enemy attacks were repelled during the day. The fiercest battles continue for Bakhmut and Marinka, the report reads. The General Staff emphasizes that the Russian Federation continues to ignore international humanitarian law, striking not only the positions of Ukrainian troops but also at the civilian infrastructure of populated settlements, terrorizing civilians. During the day, the aggressor launched 3 missile strikes, 31 airstrikes, and about 26 MLRS attacks. Civilians were injured, private houses and other civilian infrastructure objects were destroyed and damaged. In Volyn and Polishcha directions, the operational situation has not changed significantly. No signs of formation of enemy offensive groups have been detected. The enemy maintains its military presence in Severshchina and Slobozhenshchina directions in Russia's Bryansk, Kursk, and Belgorod regions bordering Ukraine. During the day, the aggressor fired artillery and mortars on Medvedivka, Polokhanivka, Leonivka, Buda-Vorobievska, Remiak in Chernihiv region, Zanab Trubchevska, Chernatsky, Saradina Buda, Bakhmut, Sidorivka, Shpyl, Mykolaiv in Sumy region, Hariv Kazakh, Libok, Olyeniko, and Zelin in Kharkiv region. In Kupiansk direction, the settlements of Kamyanka, Krasny Persh, Novomlinsk, Lyman Pershi, Kyslivka, Berestov in Kharkiv region, Novoselivsky in Luhansk region came under enemy artillery and mortar fire. the enemy did not conduct offensive operations in Lyman direction. Terny, Torsky, Dubrova, Bilohorivka, Verkhniokamyansk, Spern in Donetsk region came under artillery fire. In Bakhmut direction, the Russians continue to conduct offensive operations. Heavy fighting continues for the city of Bakhmut. In addition, during the day, the invaders carried out unsuccessful offensive operations towards Orikovo-Vasilivka and Ivanovsky. Vashukivka, Zalizniansk, Orikovo-Vasilivka, Novomarko, Hurahorivka, Bakhmut, Chasiv Yar, Ivanovsky, Predtekine, Koschantinivka, Delivka, Pivnikny, Pivden, and New York and Donetsk region were struck. In Avdiivka direction, the aggressor carried out offensive operations near Avdiivka, Severin, and Pervomaysk in Donetsk region, had no success. The enemy also shelled the settlements of Novokolino, Berdichi, Lastochkin, Avdiivka, Vodian, Pervomaysk, Karlivka, and Nevelsky in Donetsk region. In Marinka direction, the Ukrainian defenders repelled numerous enemy attacks in Marinka area. Krasnohorivka, Heorhivka, Marinka, Paraskoviivka, and Novomikhailivka in Donetsk region came under enemy fire. During the day, the enemy did not conduct offensive operations in Shakhtarsk direction. Bohoyavlenka, Novokranka, Shakhtarsk, Prekostivka, and Vuhledar in Donetsk region were hit. The enemy continues to hold the defense in Zaporizhia and Kherson directions. At the same time, during the day, the invaders shelled more than 30 settlements, including Vremivka, Novopil in Donetsk region, Huliapol, Zaliznikny, Mala Tokhmichka, Novoandriivka, Kamyansk in Zaporizhia region, Berislav, Kozatsky, Tokarivka, Antonivka, Bilozerka, Burhov, Kherson in Kherson region. During the day, the Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine launched 11 strikes on enemy personnel and military equipment clusters. An enemy reconnaissance unmanned aerial vehicle was also shot down. A total of 369,000 Russian occupiers fighting against Ukraine, Defense Ministry. The aggressor state of Russia has not given up its plans for the complete capture and destruction of Ukraine, for which it is using about 369,000 personnel and about 5,900 units of heavy weapons against Ukrainian troops. This was stated in the message of the media site of the Defense and Security Forces of Ukraine Military Media Center on Wednesday, April 26. The long-term plans of the leadership of the Russian Federation remain unchanged, to force the leadership of Ukraine to negotiate. Therefore, in the near future, the occupiers will focus on trying to push the defense forces out of important centers of the Donetsk region, the center notes. Bakhmut remains the primary target of the invaders, as well as Avdiivka and Mariinka. The aggressor state will try to enter the administrative border of the Donetsk region and maintain control over the temporarily occupied territories. It is recorded that for this purpose the Russian troops strengthened their ground grouping by 1 regiment. According to the latest data, Russia threw up to 48 brigades and 122 regiments into the hostilities against Ukraine. The occupation forces number about 315 formations. In total, the enemy uses about 369,000 personnel and about 5,900 units of heavy weapons against the Ukrainian troops, the message said. At the same time, an attack from the direction of Belarus looks extremely unlikely, but the Russian Federation will continue to keep the civilian and military infrastructure of Ukraine under threat of massive missile strikes. As Ukrainian news agency earlier reported, on April 26, the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Oleksiy Danilov, stated that threats to use nuclear weapons from Moscow are heard more often as soon as the situation on the front for the occupiers worsens. On April 26, the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine announced that the occupiers had concentrated their efforts on offensives in the Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Mariinka directions, in which the defense forces repelled 39 enemy attacks over the past day. According to data as of Wednesday morning, April 26, the Ukrainian military eliminated 640 Russian soldiers per day. The total number of losses of the Russian army since the beginning of the invasion is 188,410 soldiers.